welcome back to D.I.Try. It has been a year since I put up the pizza oven, and as you can see, apart from the base, the dome is completely gone. You'll be able to see in an update video I did earlier on this year what happened to the pizza oven. This time you're going to see how I'm going to make a bigger pizza oven, and also one that's going to last more than 1 year as well. So hopefully by the end of this project you'll have a pizza oven that will be able to last the weather and cats. Right, so this is what I've done so far. Originally I bought a gym ball or a Swiss ball to create the mould so I could shape the clay around it, but when I was looking at it, it wasn't quite the shape that I wanted and it wasn't the capacity or the size. So instead I went back to my original idea from last year, which was to use some compacted wet sand to make the mould or the shape of the oven, and bearing in mind I wanted a larger capacity, so I used a significantly larger amount of sand to do this, and I wanted to make the sides a bit steeper as well. So I had some spare clay from last year. I had 2 buckets. I opened up the lid and it was great. It was just a little bit wet, which was perfect for what I needed it for. From past experience, I put the sand onto the tarpaulin first, so I made a mixture of clay and sand, a ratio of 1 part clay to 2 parts sand. Sand on the tarpaulin first, clay on top, and then I just gave it a stomp and a squeeze for about maybe 20 minutes or half an hour, just to make sure that it was all mixed in nicely. After that, I started compacting in my hands, and started placing the pieces of clay all around, making sure it's probably about 1 inch thick, I'd say, maybe a bit more would be ideal. I did cut the opening, and bearing in mind from what I've learnt last year is that the opening, of course, is going to be the size or the maximum size of your pizza. We made a wider opening, and hopefully that will do the trick. So it's been a day since I covered the sand mount with clay, and when I was looking at it previously it was a little bit too wet. This morning it seemed to be okay, so I started scooping out the sand. As I put more sand in, it took a bit longer, and there's still quite a bit of sand in there, so I made a first fire to dry it all out inside. Because it's wet, it is a little bit more difficult to make a fire, but it's worth doing because the sand will eventually dry up and just fall off the sides and the roof. So then I got some more clay from the garden. I dug probably about 1 metre down, or less than 1 metre, and there's loads of clay there. If you're in Britain, I'm sure you'll find lots of clay in your garden if you've still got grass. So then I mixed that with some sawdust. I didn't really have an exact ratio for that. I just sort of looked and sort of felt what would have been right for it to stick together. I also added some water to it, just so it would bind a lot easier. So just play that by ear, and just imagine that when you're mixing it all together, that when you're thinking about when it's going on the dome, that it's going to stick together nicely. So today was quite straightforward. I put on another layer of clay as a mixture of 1 part clay, 2 parts sand. Similar process, mixing it on the tarpaulin, and then making sure that the substance is of the consistency where it will stick together. This time last year, that would have been the final layer, but because I want this to last longer, the next stage will be to wait for this to dry, scoop out any remaining sand, and tomorrow I'll start putting on the bricks. So as you can see, the archway at the front is finally complete. The bricks need to be cut using an angle grinder, and it took a little bit of a while to work out exactly which angles were required. I did this in 2 stages because the arch was a lot bigger than last year's archway. It's been a couple of days and the archway is completely dried. It's nice and solid. So today I attached the archway to the body of the main body of the pizza oven. I've also attached the chimney to the pizza oven using the clay to surround it and compact it in, and I've just used some bricks underneath just to hold the chimney in place until the clay dries. So I've put the final layer of bricks onto the wood-fired pizza oven. In order to do that, I sliced the bricks using an angle grinder into quarters, and then I sliced those quarters into a half-size thickness so it would follow the shape of the dome as close as it could. I used mortar with 4-part sand, 1-part cement mixture. And here is the pizza oven in action. I've tried it out a few times and it works brilliantly. I had no idea how to build something like this when I started. If I can do it, so can you. I hope you found this helpful, and if you want to give it a go, you can find my previous video on my channel. Go on, give it a D.I.Try.